Welcome, data scamps and data champs. I'm Richie, and today we're getting used to Databricks. So Databricks is one of the most popular cloud data platforms. It is popular enough that if you spend long enough working in data, at some point you're going to have to use it. So it's well worth getting to know. And half the beauty of the platform is that you can still write SQL to analyze your data. Today you're going to get to practice your SQL as well as learning about Databricks. With the Olympics kicking off later this week, it is an ideal time to play around with some fun sports data. Now, there was a bit of setup involved for this session, so there were some links sent out on how to go about doing that with the email. If you register for this session, you also get access to the links on how to set up. If you haven't managed to set up already, that's fine. I suggest just watching closely as to what's happening, and then if you want to play around for yourself, you can set up later and make use of the recording to go through coding along yourself. Now, today's guest is Holly Smith. She's a staff developer advocate at Databricks. She's a multi-award winning data and AI expert with over a decade of experience working with data and AI teams. Now, Holly is a renowned public speaker and teacher. I'm definitely a fan of her YouTube videos. And she's also a minority and tech advocate and works with nonprofits through DataKind UK. So very well-credentialed speaker, and please take it away, Holly.
Hello, everyone at home, and thank you so much for having me today. We're going to have a lot of fun today talking through Databricks. So that was a great, fantastic introduction from everyone. Just very quickly about myself, I am a staff developer advocate. It's kind of a funny job title, but ultimately I get to spend my time talking to people about Databricks. And because I'm not funded by sales or by anyone or marketing, I get to say the honest things, and which is great because I know kind of hands-on people don't really like being lied to, or not lied to, but don't really like the marketing blurb. And so the aim of today is to really talk about the real life practicalities of using Databricks. I've worked at Databricks for about 5 years now. I was one of the first employees in London. It was a bit of a learning curve for me to get up to speed with Databricks. And so if you've not used Databricks before, this session is exactly for you. So in terms of how we're going to go today, I'm going to talk through Databricks as a platform. We're going to get stuck in. We're going to get some data from Kaggle, and then we are going to do some coding together. In terms of how the session's going to run, I can see the chat on my screen, so by all means kind of jump in, even if it's just comments. It doesn't necessarily have to be questions all the time. I imagine things will be going fast pretty quickly, so recent team are here with Richie to kind of grab any questions that I might miss and then kind of go over them towards the end. So with that in mind, if we go into the actual Databricks. So this is what Databricks looks like, and I am going to walk through kind of what Databricks is, and then I'll show you how to go ahead and get started. So I think I had it in my recents. What is Databricks? So who are Databricks? Databricks is kind of the data and AI company. This AI stuff is not something new that we have just kind of recently picked up because we thought AI was cool. This is something we've been doing since our inception, and we're about 10 years old at the moment. So most of you will know us as the original creators of Apache Spark. We are big fans of open source, so we contribute heavily to open source projects. Delta Lake was donated, MLflow. Recently, we donated Unity Catalog. And we also have DBRX, which is our own generative AI LLM that we have created. We are not a small player anymore. We have about 10,000 global customers. We are really making a difference in the way that people are doing their data and AI projects. And something that's really fundamental to Databricks is this idea of a lakehouse platform. And so this was something we kind of came out with around 2020. I remember talking about it just kind of the beginning of the pandemic. And the idea with Databricks is that it's a lakehouse platform. And this is very different from maybe what you've seen in terms of kind of other data products that you might be using elsewhere. So we have fundamentally a kind of cloud data lake, and this is where all of your data sits. This is your data and it sits in your cloud environment. And today we support Microsoft Azure, AWS, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud. Now, on top of that, we have this idea called a storage layer, which doesn't really explain what it is, but it's Delta. Now, Delta, if you think about it in terms of like a special file format, this is a file format that is one, open source, so you can use it with a lot of other tools, but two, it guarantees that performance and that reliability and data quality. And we will going a little bit into that later, and we'll be using it throughout this session today. And then on top of that, to be able to manage all of that data, this is a Unity catalog, and we will use a little tiny bit today, but not a huge amount. But this is ultimately what does all your governance, not just to track, who has access to what, but it's also things like monitoring the usage and tracking all the rights and all the privileges and things like that. That's probably not that interesting unless you are an admin. So let's talk about the exciting things on the top here. So we've got data warehousing, data engineering, streaming, data science, and ML. And so it's these things which, as end users, you're probably going to be more familiar with these types of concepts. And the idea with Databricks is that we have one kind of unified platform that is able to do all of these things and do them all well. I realized writing these, this deck yesterday that it does sound like we're just kind of like put out lots of little things, but no, these are really deeply integrated products that is all one platform. The idea with Databricks is that we don't want to have those silos. We want to have this kind of interface for everyone to be able to work together and collaborate. Previously, I worked at a bank, and just trying to get like two different teams working together was a nightmare because of all the tech stack issues that were going on. The idea with Databricks is that we have one lakehouse platform that can do all of these things and do them well. So we have data warehousing, which we're going to be focusing on a little bit today. We've got data engineering. So if you are building pipelines, you're ingesting from, particular things that create data, and you want to bring those in, you want to process them at scale, you want to be able to join it with lots of other data, you really can do it at scale. I have never really come across a project where they've had too much data and we've said, oh, I can't really handle it. If anything, Databricks really sings when you are looking at huge quantities of data. We also have data streaming as well, and this is not just Spark streaming, it's also things like Delta Live tables. So if you need that big data and you need it quickly, data streaming is really going to help there. And then finally, we've got data science and machine learning. This is not something that is new. This is something that has been core to the platform for a very long time. And again, the idea with this is that we've got our simplicity. Again, it's multi-cloud, so you can bring your own cloud, bring your own data, and it's still yours. Now, in terms of this AI stuff, about a year ago, maybe 14 months ago, we acquired Mosaic AI, and they are a very clever set of people who allow us to bring AI to your lakehouse platform. And I know everyone is saying that they're doing AI at the moment, but it is more than just a virtual assistant. It's more than a code collaborator. Hopefully, you'll be able to use your the coding assistant today. And one, it's data aware, so it's very smart. But two, we've also been able to use AI throughout the entire product. Now, there are some things that you do see. So in Unity catalog, you can use it to describe your data and, create descriptions for your particular data. It's also things like the search is a lot smarter as well. So if you're searching for things using that search bar at the top, again, they're a lot smarter. But then also underneath as well, a lot of the performance improvements that we've been able to deliver over the last year or so have been because of these new kind of generative AI capabilities that have come out. So you will see it kind of threaded throughout the entire platform today. Oh, and I guess a very important part, it's private because we have DBRX. We are confident with kind of the models that we are using and making sure that this is something for you. So what are we going to do today? So today we will be using Delta as a format to store your data on your cloud environment of choice. I'm on AWS at the moment. If you're on Azure, you've probably got a big Azure bar at the top there. We're going to be using data warehouses to run the processing of the data. Now, if you're not used to cloud environments, maybe I should back up a little bit. So if you're used to kind of cloud environments or you're used to kind of classic data warehouses, you might not necessarily think of all of these things separately. It's just kind of like, I have the data, it just like runs on a warehouse, right? With Databricks, you have that kind of functionality to be able to customize what it is that you're doing. So in terms of how your data is stored, you can choose to store it however you like. Delta is one of the best ways to be able to run it in a very performant way. And so that's why it's the default for Databricks. But that doesn't mean that you can't read and use other file formats. And, we'll be, ingesting some CSV data today, but in terms of compatibility, like there's a huge array of things there. In terms of the infrastructure that we're going to use to run the processing of the data, we will be using data warehouses, and I'll get onto it in a little bit about how to get that set up for us. And then we've got Spark, which is going to be used now. Because we're working in SQL, we're not really going to see any Spark syntax whatsoever. So if you don't know Spark, good news, you're going to use it and not realize you're using it, which is always the best way. And this is the kind of logic to kind of process the data, and then a little bit of Unity Catalog to organize our data. And then we will be using the AI assistant. We will be using some AI SQL features, which are quite exciting, and also Genie as well, which is a way that you can interact with your data in plain English. In terms of what we're not going to use today, there's a huge amount of things that we are not going to use, unfortunately, because we don't have time. Also, because there's just such a huge amount. There's no way that, one person can go over all of these things. I think realistically, if you wanted to get fully trained in all of these things, you're probably committing to about 6 or 7 weeks worth of full-time training. So Databricks is a very, very big platform. It is huge. If you're feeling quite overwhelmed by this at the moment, don't be. Most people rarely become experts in all of these areas. Normally, there might be an expert in data engineering and then, being very good at that and getting data from point A to point B. Or they might be kind of machine learning deployment expert, or they might be an admin and really know Unity Catalog in depth. So there's a lot of things that we're not going to use today. I do apologize that we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but I really hope that today is just going to give you a good foundation of what it is that we're working at. People are saying, are there notebooks for us to go ahead and practice later? Yes. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get started. So I appreciate you don't have these notebooks yet. What we're going to do is set up our compute first. Then I'll show you how to import your notebooks, and then we'll kind of go through. So in terms of your compute, this is the infrastructure, the thing that you get from your cloud provider to run and process your code. And so here's, we're looking at Databricks. Maybe I should do a bit of an intro of the things that we have here. So on the left-hand side here, you probably have this big navigation bar. My goodness, there's a lot of things in here. So at the top, this is just kind of general navigation things. We are going to be starting by looking at compute. We've also got a lot of SQL features here, which we are also going to be looking at. Not necessarily all of them, but these are where most of the things are that are going to be today. We've got lots of data engineering bits and pieces. We'll be using a few of them. Machine learning, sorry, not going to learn any of these things. And then we have the marketplace and partner connect as well. So if you want to be able to grab some data from the marketplace, you can do. And then also we have partner connect. So let's talk through our compute. So if I go and click on this on the left-hand side, so I've set mine to collapse once I'm not hovering over it, but you can choose to have this bar stick out if you use the expand menu button down at the bottom here. So I'm looking at compute here on the left-hand side. And so we've got different options when it comes to compute. So we have kind of classic clusters. Now, if you've been using Databricks for about 2 or more years, you're probably very used to this idea of kind of like you go ahead and you set up a cluster. Now, this is great, but I'm going to show you, if I go compute here, look at all these settings there are. Like, there's so many. And this is frankly a lot of customization that we don't really need today. So instead, what I'm going to ask everyone to do is to head to SQL warehouses, which is the third one in, and to go ahead and create a SQL warehouse. Now, we can name this whatever it is that we want. So let's call it training. In terms of the size that you need, we can go for the smallest one. We're not going to do a huge amount here. In terms of the auto stop, if you don't play with the cluster or do anything to it, it's just going to turn off, which is exactly what you want, because when it's up and running, you're paying for it. It doesn't matter whether you're giving it the hardest queries ever to process. That's going to cost exactly the same as you just turning on and forgetting about it. So let's turn it off after 10 minutes of inactivity. In terms of scaling, we don't need that. It's just going to be us. We don't have any other people. using our cluster, our warehouse. And then in terms of the type, if you have the ability to click serverless, I really recommend it. You do get a nicer development experience. But if you don't have that option, by all means go for Pro. And I think Classic, you might end up with a few problems. So let's go ahead and create net. Now, some of you, that's fine. Some of you might not have been able to do this. You might have been looking for that SQL Warehouses button at the top here, and it's not there, or you don't have the ability to create a SQL warehouse. Do you just want to quickly note, like that's just set up. That's great. Like that took a few seconds to get started. If you don't have the ability to do this, you will need something to run your clusters on. So either you can either pick something else that you already have access to, or you'll have to go ahead and set up an all-purpose compute or kind of classic cluster. So go ahead and create compute on the right-hand side. Now, these take about 5 minutes to spin up. So this is why I've kind of put it right at the beginning. So it gives us time to set this up. In terms of what it is that you need, in terms of policy, leave that as default access mode. That's fine. In terms of the runtime, you can leave that as it is. You don't need Photon. If you leave it on, it's not the end of the world. And then in terms of the worker type, just leave it as the generic one. If you're on Azure or GCP, that's going to look different. That's fine. The one thing I will recommend is you turn off auto scaling. We don't need some big beastie 8-node cluster. Just set it as one worker. That's absolutely fine. And then in terms of the auto terminate, whereas previously we had 10 minutes, let's set that to match instead of it being 2 hours so that you don't have any issues like that. And so they're the only things that you really need to change, and then go ahead and create this compute. Now, this will not take a few seconds to start up. This will, in fact, take probably 3 to 5 minutes, depending on which cloud you're on and which region you're on and how busy it is, because your cloud provider is currently acquiring one of these things for you, or 2 of them, I should say, and then setting those up for you. So go ahead and do that. Just going to quickly have a look, see if we've got any questions. Someone says, by the end of the day, we're creating SQL queries. Yes, so we're just choosing the infrastructure that we want to be able to run this on. Now, I've seen everyone say there are resources to go ahead and view for the things that we are doing. There absolutely are. So in the files that are provided, there should be a file that's Databricks training.dbc. Hang on. Sorry, moderators. I'm going to share my download screen. Right. So we should have this Databricks training.dbc that we are going to use, and hopefully that should be linked in what we have here. So we're going to go ahead and import this. So let's go to the workspace on the top left-hand side. Now, I use this workspace all the time, so it's absolutely filled with stuff. And we're going to import that notebook into our particular area. It doesn't really matter where you put it. Obviously, don't put it, if you're using a work environment, like don't shove it in someone else's project, but putting it in your own particular user space. So if you click on the home on the top left, this is my particular space. My coworkers don't really use this, that's fine. So I'm going to go to the kebab menu on the top right-hand side. That's what these 3 dots are. Some of my coworkers did not believe that that's called a kebab menu, but never mind. We go ahead and we import this. And we are going to import from a file. And in terms of the files that we're going to use, we're going to go to Browse. I've got my downloads, and I'm going to go ahead and import those DBC files. I go ahead and I click Import. And data camp training should be here, and we should have all of this here. So these are, it's not 7 notebooks we're going to go through really, it's mostly the first 6, but we've already gone through one of what is Databricks, and for some reason it's highlighted, and now you should have access to all of these things that we've got here. So we're now on actually getting onto section 2. So we've got our compute, which we've gone ahead and set up. We've gone ahead and this is the notebook import and export instructions. So we've gone ahead and imported it. And the next question that I normally get after this is, how do I go ahead and export all of this? I've done the training. I'm really happy with the work. I want to be able to export it. If you go to the left-hand side here, you've got the workspace options. And if you click on the, again, kebab menu on the top left-hand side, you can go ahead and you can export it. We had it as a DBC archive file. So this is kind of the Databricks type that will allow you to import it with all the results into a new Databricks workspace. You can do it as another type, but I'd really recommend the DBC archive. Again, if you wanted to, there's multiple ways that you can do this. You can do it from here as well, and go ahead and export it from the main menu. There are multiple ways to do it, but yes, you can export it, and the instructions are there if you didn't quite catch what I was saying. In terms of actually using notebooks, the vast majority of users do use notebooks. I know for a while this was kind of seen as a bit, I don't know, I want to say taboo, but it wasn't really seen for kind of like real data engineers. But in most of my time that I've seen at Databricks, very few people use their own IDE. There is a VS Code integration. There are a few others as well, but the notebook experience is frankly gives you so much more functionality than it would be using your own IDE. So if you're doing something where you're using exclusively Databricks, just like use the notebooks. That's what they're designed for. They're designed for everyone to kind of be able to jump in, and so that you can work collaboratively as a team. They work similar to kind of like a Google Doc. If you've got multiple people in a notebook, you can all see the other changes that everyone else is making, and it's all live and it's up to date. In terms of navigation, on the left-hand side here, so we've got the first bar on the left-hand side, which is blue, and then the second bar, we have a table of contents so that you can see what is in these particular notebooks. But we've also got what is happening in our workspace. So these are the files within our folders, which we're going to be working through today. We've got the catalog, and this is going to show us our data and the data that we are using. And I'll go through kind of how this works. And then we also have the AI assistant as well. So if you want to be able to kind of ask questions about what it is that you're doing, any debugging things will also come up here on the right-hand side. In terms of the notebooks themselves, you can switch between multiple languages. So this one is in SQL. We can see here that it's in SQL on the top left-hand side here. Again, we've got Python, we've got Scala, and we've got R as well. But if you wanted to switch language, you absolutely can do. So I've got select hello here, and I can see that this is SQL. But if I wanted to, within the same notebook, I can do %Python, and then print, if I can spell print correctly, hello, and connect to let's connect to training. Oh, hang on, I do need to have a cluster for that. There we go. And it will go ahead and run. I don't think this is quite done yet. That's why it's taking a while. But yeah, you can run Python and you can run SQL, and you can switch between any of the languages. So if I wanted to, I can, I've got SQL in the next one, and that's absolutely fine. Another kind of fake language you can use is Markdown. So how have I made all of these notebooks look quite pretty and kind of like with all the text in there? It's using %MD, and if you double click on it, you can see how I've gone ahead and created it. And this is how I kind of make everything a lot prettier and a bit easier to read. If you are sharing some analysis with someone, you might want to use this. All right, so how do we go about and actually run things in Databricks? So I've got these commands here. And so I'm going to ask you all to go to the top right-hand side here and pick whatever it was that you set up to run your notebook. So the thing that we set up with the cloud and compute earlier, I'm going to need you to go ahead and attach your notebook to that particular cluster on the top right hand side there. So we've got a couple of ways that we can run things. So you can either use kind of the play at the top left hand side that we've got here, and we don't know what that's doing. And now we've got a few things that we can see. So we've got a few extra options. If you go with the drop down, I'm going to try and click around and not just go for the shortcuts each time. But if you want the shortcuts for your machine, they will come up here. We've got a few other things as well. We've got these drop downs on the right hand side here. So you get a lot of extra functionality here. You do get the performance. Now, if you're using a traditional cluster, this is not going to come up for you. But if you're using a serverless warehouse, then you will get some performance things that come up on the right-hand side, and you can get the breakdown of everything. This is not to say that with traditional cluster, you can't get this information. It's not quite as neatly packaged as that. We also have our results. And if we wanted to, we can add a visualization. This is the world's worst visualization, but we have the option to. And then we also have search. So if we wanted to search for something, it will come up. We've got the ability to filter the results as well without using code. And then also you can search within the particular details too. All right, so that's the basics of running something. We've got Unity Catalog, which is how we manage governance. Now, with Unity Catalog, there is a lot of it to it. We are going to be using tables for this, and we're going to go ahead and create some tables. Now, we've got catalogs and databases, and the way to think about this is that tables and views or whatever, they belong within databases, and then a database goes into a catalog. So it's a hierarchy. So here's one I made earlier. If I go to the left-hand side here, I go on the little triangles and the circle, square. I've gone ahead and I've created a training catalog, and then I've got a database in here which is called DataCamp. I don't have any data in it yet. You will need to put your data somewhere. Now, if you're using an existing workspace from work, then that's already set up for you. You might have somewhere that you might already want to put these things. If not, if you run these commands, it will go ahead and create a catalog for you. Go ahead and use that catalog, and then go ahead and make a database within that one. We will be using these later on. So I've set it up as training and DataCamp. We will need to copy and paste these into our next workspace, fourth notebook. So just keep those in mind. We will need to use these later. All right, so that's the basics of how to use the notebooks. Let's move on to importing some data. Someone says, what SQL dialect is it? It is Spark SQL. Kebab menu is a little 3 dots that I see on the right-hand side. And Siddharth says, Databricks is like AWS, right? So Databricks does run on top of AWS. So when we choose some compute for our clusters or our warehouses, that will come from AWS. AWS provides the storage for us. It is a first-party service on Azure, is a third-party service on AWS, I think. Any other quick questions that are coming up? No. Okay, then. So we are.
There was one question from Vishnu about, can you use this for registering data validation rules? I don't really want to briefly get into that. It sounds like a big topic.
It is an enormous topic. Can we pin that one and leave it to the end? There's about 5
minutes. Let's do that at the end. Yes.
All right. So we are going to be using some Kaggle data. Now, I think Reese has popped some of the CSV files in a zip file attached to this. If you don't want to go that way for any reason, and you want to know the source, it is these data sets that we've got here. We've got the tweets data, which is this quite chunky CSV, and we also have technically 2 data sets, which is about medals, and then also there's like a country lookup table as well. So you can download these. Do not use the croissant type. That's not going to help you. So go ahead and download those if you don't have access to them already. If not, you've just got the downloads from the window. That is that is absolutely fine. So now that we've got our data, how are we going to go ahead and import it? Actually, it might take a few clicks for people to do that. So whilst you're all getting that into your downloads folder or on your desktop or getting that file locally, I will say as a massive disclaimer, this is like kind of an anti-pattern with Databricks. Normally we're talking about kind of petabytes of data, gigabytes at the least. You're definitely not downloading it as a CSV and then uploading it. In reality, this is probably going to be part of some like enormous pipeline. You're probably not going to be importing data like this. There are a multitude of ways that you can do this. This disclaimer has a few examples of how you might be able to do this. And so if you're watching the video, feel free to pause it and click around and have a look. But for everyone else, there's just so many ways that you can do it. This is probably not the best way to do it, but we're going to do it anyway because we need our data. So let's go to the left-hand menu, and under data engineering, we have data ingestion. So let's go ahead and open that. We are going to go to this from local files, create or modify table. And we are going to go ahead and add our 3 files and just drop them in here all at once. Now this, I've just realized I'm streaming. This might take a while, hopefully not. Oh, it's just killed my internet. Excellent. All right, so this is going to upload. Make sure that you do have some compute on the top right-hand side here. What this is going to do is going to make one giant Frankenstein table, but we're going to fix that all in the analytics in a bit. And all right, looks like I've got this loading. I did not think about this. Let's see if we've got any more questions coming up.
Actually, not from the audience, but I've got a question for you.
Sure.
I noticed we're using these DBC notebooks. So how are those related to Jupyter notebooks?
If you have used Jupyter notebooks before, this will be kind of familiar. Think of it as like a flavor of Jupyter notebooks, but there's a lot more Databricks specific things that will happen with this. So it is that cell by cell development. You can run things out of order. Does Jupyter let you switch language? I don't think it does. It's Python only, isn't it?
No, there are plugins for lots of different languages with Jupyter as well. So yeah.
Okay.
So which languages does DBC support then?
So DBC is just kind of when you export it, like the file type. You only really come across it if you're doing tutorials like this. But yeah, it's Scala, R, Python, and SQL. And technically Markdown, but that's not a scripting language. So, but yeah, you can switch between any of them. So if you're doing something in Python and you're like, oh, I don't really know how to do this in Python, but I know how to do it in SQL, you can just kind of swap between them and it just works. Something else worth noting is they all work on Spark as well. And so there's very little performance difference between them all. So especially from an analytics perspective, it doesn't really make much difference which language you're using. Just pick the one that you feel comfortable with.
Okay, that's useful. So whatever language you want to use, you can then just use it. You don't need to worry too much about the whole performance thing because it's all just Spark.
Yes.
All right, nice. Oh, I've just had people from the Data Lab team messaging me saying, please can you mention the integration with Databricks. So if you are a user of Data Lab, so that's DataCamp's hosted Jupyter Notebook platform, you can integrate with Databricks. It's very easy. It's just the same as connecting to any other database. And so I have DataCamp and Databricks working nicely together. All right, super. Do you want more questions while this is loading?
I think it gets to the end of the X and then it's done. I don't think it goes across the whole screen, but like, sure, throw a question at me. Let's see what we got.
All right, super. Okay, I was trying to think what we've been talking about. So going back to the compute thing. Mm-hmm. So you had all these settings like, you need to pick like the 2x small kind of type. How do you know what kind of compute you need to set up for a given task? Is there a way to calculate how much you need for any given job?
So if you're doing analytics, just pick a warehouse, and if it's just you by yourself, just pick small or kind of extra small. Like that's fine. in terms of like, there's like literally a conference talk from one of my coworkers, which is 2 hours long on how to configure your cluster for data engineering jobs. So there's a reason we've got a simplified version.
Okay.
Because like, if you want to go into like, here's how to hardcore optimize your cluster, you need to know a lot about Spark. And if this is your first foray into Databricks, I'm not going to throw that at you because, my goodness, it's a lot. All right, this is uploaded and it looks like an absolute mess. And this is exactly what I anticipated. And if yours looks disgusting like this, that is absolutely fine. We've got a lot of our tables on here, a lot of our columns, and we can see that we've just kind of like smushed it all together, and that's fine. And we've made this completely ugly table. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to pick our catalog that we went ahead and created. So we're going to put it in the right place. We're going to make sure that we're creating a new table. And I am going to call this Olympics Frankenstein table, because it's just huge. All right, so let's go ahead and create this. You're also going to get to see my terrible typos throughout all of this. And for those of you that find them in the notebooks, I'm very sorry. Spell check doesn't work on Databricks notebooks. So you get to see all of those. All right. All right, this is being created. I'm well aware that we are doing terribly for time. So I am going to talk through what it is that we're going to do in our actual coding and analysis. So, oh, here it is. So it's gone ahead and made that in our particular area. Again, we can see the AI starting to pop up here in terms of suggestions like, this is what this thing is, and blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the table name. And now onto our data analysis. So we have one giant Frankenstein table. We're going to do a bit of SQL to split it into three. So we've got the three tables from that Olympic data from Kaggle. We've got our tweets data, our region lookup, and our medals. And I have this hypothesis that tweets are impacted by the number of medals a country wins. I don't know anything about sport, so maybe this hypothesis is valid, maybe it isn't. We're going to classify our Twitter locations into countries, bearing in mind this is user-entered data, so we're going to have to really guess about these things. We're going to join on some medals data through our region lookup table, and then just get some sentiment of tweets. I will say this is also some really bad analysis that we've got here. This is not for us to show off our analytical skills and kind of like get the correct answer per se. It's for me to show you some of the interesting things that you can do in Databricks. So this was my table that I had here, and I remember that my catalog, I still remember it's written in front of me. So training was my catalog, and then the database was DataCamp. So let's go ahead and connect at the top right here, and I can go ahead and run this. And now I don't need to specify this kind of 3-level hierarchy each time. I can just like refer to the table, and it's always going to use that, and any table it makes, it's also going to be in this location. So let's take a look at this data, and my goodness, it's hideous. Hopefully you can see this. And we've got some, the Twitter data up top, but we've got loads of nulls. The CSV format really did a number on this because it's a comma separated value, and everyone has the audacity to put commas in their tweets, commas in their bios, commas in their location. And so that's broken a load of things, and we can't be bothered with any of those things. So let's go ahead and turn this into 3 separate tables. So this is where the code long begins. In terms of turning this into our Twitter data, and so what this actually looks like. So we're going to go ahead and create our Olympic tweets table, and so I know it's going to be as, and again, this is just very standard SQL, so I know it's going to be from my Olympic Frankenstein table. I know I'm going to have to pick some columns because they're not all relevant. So I'm going to zoom out very slightly. Hopefully you can still see. But we've got, what is it we needed? The username we need to get, right, so let's get our Twitter data, and it's going to be, and by all means, don't necessarily follow me along precisely. By all means, have a go at this. Again, the aim is not to kind of get the correct answer. It's just to grab some data and show some things that we've got here. So we've got a username and user location, which we need to get. We've got the user description, user created, I think the next one was created, user followers, user friends. To do the autocomplete, I'm just using the tab here. Oh no, we've got favorites. What else have we got? User verified, date, text, which is the actual tweet itself, hashtag source, hashtags source. I'm going to show you a quicker way to do this next time, by the way. Retweets. Is retweet, and I think that's the rest of it. Oh yeah, I think that's just the end of the table. So and then we have to figure out a way of guessing which rows belong to which table. So obviously if all of these things are null, so maybe we could estimate one of these. So let's say it has to have a username, because it's going to be pretty useless without a username. From username, where username is not null, then let's all right. So, I've got a syntax error already, and the assistant has told me how to go ahead and fix this. And what is it saying? You need to create stable. You need to specify your columns as, I'm missing a select, and that has gone ahead and worked there. So if you want, you can just like automatically replace the content if you want, or if you're a little bit more cautious, you can go ahead and try and find it out yourself. Thank you. And it's telling me retweets, tell me I have spelt something wrong, so maybe I should have listened to it when it told me what to do. And it is quite smart. I will say I have been quite impressed by how good this is. And now I can see that my Twitter data still looks completely rubbish, because I can still see I've got some hashtags in here, and I can see that some of this data just like doesn't make any sense. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that let's pick something that seems like it's quite good. So user verified should be true or false, not null, because that doesn't make any sense. So let's add this in as another condition, as user verified is in true or false. Right. It's just going to correct me every single time, isn't it? Right. User verified. Have I spelled this? Yep, spelled that wrong. Brilliant. Okay, so let's run this again. And we can see this is starting to look a lot more sensible, but again, I don't think that is someone's username. So let's have a look at our other data, and you know what, I know that if the hashtag is there, then it's formatted correctly. So let's add that on as well, and do add where hashtags is not null. So let's go ahead and do that. Right. Can you stop? You're embarrassing me, right? Okay, so this looks a lot better and I'm happy with this. Now, something that you can do with Databricks, or in fact Delta, is that you can roll back to earlier versions of our table. And we could see how many records we're actually excluding. So I've got this describe history, and we'll be able to see the history of what this table has looked like. But what I can do is I've got this syntax here where I can say version as of 0. So if I have a look at the versions, I can see that I've made 3 versions of this table. I've started with 0, and then I did 1, and then I did 2. And I get the information about kind of like how I made it, where it was made, all this information that you probably are not going to need for analytics, but it's there just in case you need it. And I can see the count and how they varied. And I started off with, 250,000 records, and I've brought it down to 60,000 due to bad data quality. All right, so let's go ahead and make the region lookup table. I've just seen that we're doing absolutely terrible for time. Team, what do we want to do about this? Are we okay to go up to the hour?
Yeah, I think we've been through most of the questions. So if you want to keep going till about 5:02-ish or so, and see if you can get there.
Okay then. Cool. Right. So this region lookup table, this was only two columns. So this one was quite an easy one. Select. Oh, did I do a distinct on this? Yeah, let's make this a distinct. All right. I think what I'm going to do is talk through these 3 tables, and then I'm going to be really cheeky. I think I'm going to talk through the answers. I'm going to show you where the answers are. I'm going to show you what the features are that we can use as part of this. So we had, I think it was like distinct. I think NOC was one of the columns, and then region from Olympus Frankenstein, and say where region is not null. Okay. All right. And so for the next table, I spent ages, writing out all of these columns that we've got here. So I'm going to use something in Databricks called except, where what I can do is I can, instead of saying select all of these things, what I can do is select star, and then I can also do except, and then I can just list the columns that I don't want to include. And because I'm lazy, this is very useful for me. I also don't want these 2 either, so let's go ahead and add these in. And I wanted to do this from Olympic. Oh, pick, no, wrong one. Stein, why are you? And let's say I'm going to have to pick something to make this a null. So let's start from you, and we'll have a look to see. I know why this has happened. Yeah, we need to rename a column. Unfortunately, when we loaded the data in, so if I do a describe extended on describe extended on this table, on our original table that we inserted, this entry ID has a space in it, which our engine is not going to like at all. So what I'm going to do is I am going to alter a table name first. So I think it's alter table. Oh, that suggested something that's kind of close. Rename column, actually entry ID as, and I think it's 2, not as, 2 entry ID. Let's see if this works. And it's worked. Huzzah! All right, Travis, you're giving me hope, saying that we've got it done live. Data cleaning really works. Oh yeah, it's really iterative. So yeah, this is how things work. All right, so we've got this data here. We've got the right columns, but I have a suspicion we're still going to have a bunch of nulls in here because we've still got 10,000 rows. And I think we might need to exclude some things. So let's say, so we've already altered our table. Let's not do that twice. I'm going to say where this entry ID is not null. And I'm also going to make it distinct as well, because you never know really what's going on underneath. Where entry ID is not null. All right, let's give it another go. Okay, so we have gone ahead and made our 3 tables. Again, if we've done it kind of wrong, that's okay. The aim of the game is not to get like the perfect answer to this. Right, this is, get rid of that. All right, so my hypothesis was going to be, before I realized this is going to take absolutely ages, was to figure out how the medals affected the sentiment of tweets. And I'm going to be realistic with myself. There's no way I can get through this in 8 minutes and get through the dashboarding and through some other bits and pieces. So what I'm going to do, don't tell anyone else, I already have the answers that are in here, and I'm going to show you a pre-worked example of how you can do these things. So here's was my hypothesis. We could find the percentage of the medals per the country and then join on the tweet data through that country. Now, what I wanted to show is that you could go through, you could manually classify absolutely everything, the user inputted data, or we could just make AI do it. And so if you head to the workspace on the left-hand side here, in terms of the includes, I've got this sneaky initialize folder, which is designed to look really boring, but in fact, it is not. It is the answers. So the aim of the game here was to go ahead and use AI. So we're just doing some things about kind of getting the Olympic medal rates that we've got here. So we can go ahead and do that. And then what I wanted to be able to show you was that you actually can use these functions. We've got like AI extract, where we can specify a user location, and what it will do is it'll go and return the city or the country from all of this plain text that we've got here. So I am going to, oh, I don't have the, no, it wasn't. It was training, and it was data camp. So what I was going to do, go ahead and make this. And when we have a look at the data, we can see that underneath that actually all the user location is manually inputted. So when you're using this AI extract, what this is doing, again, is using AI to just go through, and you can use this with your SQL queries, which is great. Oh, why did this fail? Oh, excuse me. If you're following along, why is it saying this doesn't exist? Huh. All right, fine, be like that. The idea was, you go ahead, you can extract this data. There's some other kind of like mapping that I was doing as well, just to kind of make it map. And then being able to kind of join all of our data together, and then finally being able to use the analyze sentiment. And again, there's loads of like open source libraries that you can use, or you could just kind of use it in SQL. And my aim was to kind of show that, if you've only got a couple of thousand rows, it doesn't really cost that much in terms of being able to do this. If you are using kind of like a work environment, about like 1 million tokens, so that's not quite 1 million words, it's about $5. So it's not horrendous, but like don't go completely nuts with it. From there, the aim of the game was to then go ahead and be able to have enough data to go ahead and build a dashboard. And if you have a look at visualizations, you can go ahead and use visualizations within Databricks in multiple ways. So we've got just like within the notebooks themselves. So I'm actually going to cheat and use one that I made earlier. Data. Oops. Training. And run this. Oh, I've named it wrong, haven't I? Oh, it was in default. That's why. So what I could do is if I just want something that's in line, when I do a select from these particular things, you can add visualizations of the things that you want. So I've got a bar chart here. We've got, I don't want text. That's a terrible thing to choose. So maybe we want to plot, I don't know, the number of retweets, or we can have, a particular column of the sum of how many we get, and we can see what this looks like or aggregate it. Here's one I made earlier. I made a pie chart of like the sentiment that we've got for our particular data. In terms of the dashboarding, I'm going to encourage you to do this and go ahead yourself, but I will show you one that the samples that we have earlier. This is not necessarily a competition to compete with kind of Power BI. It's not quite that level of functionality, but if you want to have something that is free to use, if you want something that is going to work with your data, you don't need to export it, you don't need to load it anywhere. You have this idea of the dashboards within Databricks to go ahead and build out any visualizations that you might have here. DataCamp team, I am going to finish really quickly, I promise. So this was the dashboards that you have access to, and we've got some instructions here on how to go ahead and get started. We do have Genie Spaces where you can ask plain English questions about your data. I'm not going to walk through that now because I think then we'll horrendously overrun. There's also the ability to schedule all of your notebooks as well. You can just schedule it, this kind of top right-hand button. You can schedule dashboards if you want to and kind of receive them on a regular basis. And then finally, there's like really advanced stuff. If you head to workflows on the left-hand side, you can get really detailed here in terms of the things that people are doing. I don't think this has got, no, it's not got any dependencies. I think this was my example, where you can start really getting creative in how you're scheduling these things together. So if you need multiple notebooks to run and they depend on each other and you only want it to run if it finishes, the other one finishes, this is something that you can do. And then finally, if this hasn't been overwhelming enough and you're like, you know what, I really want some more, I really recommend checking out DB demos. Go ahead and install this on, you'll need a traditional cluster to get this running. And then we've got these demos here, which are all ready for you to go ahead and get set up. And you just literally, this is so many of them, you literally just run this and it goes ahead and it installs lots of your notebooks that you've got and makes a cluster for you as well. So this is another great way that if you want to get some like real meaty examples of how to use Databricks, I really recommend this. All right, that is 1 minute. How should we do any questions?
All right, super. We're going to run a couple of minutes over. So for anyone who has to jump, please do catch up with the rest of the Q&A on the recording. Before you go, I just want to say we've got a couple of relevant webinars and code alongs coming up. So on Thursday, there's going to be a session on making use of AI-assisted coding. So that's going to be a great session on Thursday. Then next Tuesday, there's a session on building retrieval augmented generation apps. So that's going to be with Pinecone. All right. Now, after those last few minutes were a bit chaotic, but it's one of my favorite things in the code alongs when things go wrong, because that's how stuff happens in real life. Like, you never do analyses perfectly. Half the time you are just like going, oh, what does that error mean? Maybe I'll use the AI assistance. Maybe I have to go back through and scroll through my code to see what I did wrong. So that was a lot of fun. All right. There is a question from Travis. Where's it gone? Saying, why would you use Databricks rather than DataCamp Data Lab? So maybe I can speak to the Data Lab part of this first, but I feel like they're very different products. So with Data Lab, we've just been focused on how do you make the best possible Jupyter notebook so it's easy to get started, easy to learn things, easy to take part in these code alongs. We don't do any data warehousing at all. There's no data storage. You've got to connect to your own database. And that's one thing that Databricks offers is a much more fully featured product. So Holly, do you want to talk a bit about like why people should use Databricks?
Compared to?
Well, I guess compared to another analytics notebook.
Sure. So if you are doing kind of individual work, this might not be as obvious to you. But when it comes to working in a team, working in an environment, working with a multidisciplinary team, Databricks is the tool of choice. And I appreciate people are here to learn, hopefully to kind of gain skills to show them on new career paths. And if you are working with a team that is using Databricks, you know they are going to be having serious data impact. There are teams out there that kind of do a bit of analysis and that doesn't really go anywhere. Databricks is built for serious enterprise problems. And when you fix those problems, people will be so grateful for you. So if you are interviewing somewhere, if you're applying for new roles, if you're seeing that they're using Databricks, you know they're doing kind of real proper data work that is meaningful and it has an impact and it has that power behind it to not just move data from point A to point B, but also do machine learning to also get your analysis and share those results with people. So that's my pitch for Databricks. Honestly, from an employment perspective, don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Like you can look at the numbers. Is it GitHub? Who else is it that publishes these? I'm kind of like earnings per platform, and Databricks is pretty high up there. So great tool to use. Who doesn't like money?
Absolutely. Money is one of my favorite things. Yeah. So I'm sure for a lot of our audience as well. Excellent. So one more question from Travis. This is a data camp question. So do data camps, Databricks courses cover dashboarding too? So at the moment we've got 2 Databricks courses. There's Databricks Concepts, which covers like what is Databricks, and there's Introduction to Databricks, which is a sort of hands-on thing. And then there is going to be a course. I think there's 3 more courses coming out over the next few months. So the one on data visualization and dashboards is coming out, I believe, September-ish. So there will be a lot on dashboards with Databricks coming soon, but you've got to wait a couple of months. In the meantime, please do take the Databricks Concepts and Introduction to Databricks. All right, with that, we are well past time. So I just want to say thank you, Holly. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so thank you again.
No, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for bearing with me. I did this by myself yesterday and it took about an hour and I don't think I really took into account a lot of the setup. So thank you very much to everyone for bearing with me. By all means, you've got access to these notebooks. I have made sure to make sure that you don't necessarily have to have me in the background. These can be used independently as well to go along and try out these things. And I really recommend you do.
Absolutely. Trying things out is the best way to learn. So please do check out the recording if you didn't manage to follow along during the session. All right, brilliant. So thank you to Reese moderating. Thank you to everyone who asked a question. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. Hope to see you all again.